Mr. Langworthy for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Since day one of the Biden-Harris administration, Americans have seen an all-out attack on consumer choice. Whether it be the appliances that we buy or the cars that we drive, the Biden and Harris administration has forgotten about the everyday Americans and instead has catered to a radical left-wing environmental cult by choosing winners and losers in consumer markets. Mr. DeVores, would you agree with this characterization?
Well, certainly Mrs. DeVore would agree with that characterization, given the low quality and the unusual characteristics of some of the low-energy appliances we've been forced to purchase, many of which seem to soon fail and take frequently considerably longer to accomplish their tasks in the name of nominal energy savings. Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, very good. Look no further than the efforts to mandate, as you said, the types of household appliances that everyday Americans can purchase. I think, my family's on our fourth washing machine in about 10 years. We saw a tax on dishwashers, on shower heads, gas stoves, furnaces, and several other appliances necessary for our everyday lives. Mrs. Anwaka, do you believe that these mandates have contributed to the findings of data reported on by the New York Post in July, where 73% of Americans reported that their utility bills strain their finances, and 1 in 10 said that they would borrow money from friends or families to cover costs?
Thank you for your question. I think absolutely there's an increase in utility cost, and obviously if you're able to afford these new energy efficient appliances, maybe that is contributing, but overall their utility bills are up, and so I think we're increasingly seeing a lot of families who are making, as I mentioned, that heat or eat existential choice.
It's a very unfair choice for our hardworking taxpayers. Onto electric vehicles. Now, not only has the Biden and Harris administration catered to the radical environmentalists on appliances, it's also chosen winners and losers in what was once America's most prosperous industry, the auto industry. Despite prices at the pump reaching record new highs and surpassing an average of $3 a gallon anywhere in the country for over 1,000 consecutive days, gas-powered cars remain a more affordable option for most consumers compared to their electric counterparts. Yet the Biden and Harris administration doesn't seem to care about affordability or practicality, for that matter. Unelected bureaucrats in the administration have levied several mandates, like the EPA's tailpipe emission final rule that favors the electric vehicle industry and requires Americans to drive electric vehicles. Mr. DeVore, according to Kelley Blue Book, an average electric vehicle costs nearly $57,000 on average. Do you believe that the average American family can afford this in our current economy?
Well, no, sir, they can't. And imagine how much more it would be once the subsidies were removed, including some of the imputed subsidies, for example, with the CAFE standards that benefit EVs considerably beyond their actual fuel efficiency. If these are accounted for, the federal supports for EVs are currently averaging about almost $50,000 per vehicle. And then there's a further challenge with that. If you look at the Inflation Reduction Act spending, one of the huge areas that was not considered in all of that government spending is the infrastructure requirements to electrify our economy. So, for example, those little cans that are in your neighborhood, the small transformers that feed your neighborhood electricity? Well, those are insufficiently sized if several of your neighbors buy EVs and they come home and plug them in all at once. Those small transformers in your neighborhood are going to be overmatched. They're going to either fail or the circuit breakers will trip. If you then look throughout the economy and look at the large high voltage transformers, by the way, the majority of those are imported, the plurality of which come from the People's Republic of China. You can't even get new major transformers, the high voltage kind, for 36 to 48 months. That's the current backlog to get them. So the challenge, if you look at all of these costs that were not included, we're looking at $2.4 to $4 trillion of additional costs for things like rapid chargers, a charger network on our freeways, and neighborhood infrastructure increases. And, sir, that's not even including efforts to shift home heating from natural gas to electricity.
Well, you are really on the same page as what I'm hearing from my constituents in upstate New York, and we've had significant strain economically, and with a government picking winners and losers and choosing a mass electrification mandate like in my home state of New York, it has put our future in peril, and that's why so many people are choosing to vote with their feet and move to states where they have more personal and economic freedom. But, you know, in terms of a federal administration, you know, we're seeing, you know, what is happening in our dark blue states happening to our whole country. So it's in the American people's hands this November. But I thank you for your testimony. I'm out of time, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langworthy. The chair now recognizes my friend from New Mexico, Ms. Stansberry.